She was assigned to the failed hunter class. By week's end, every monster followed only her commands. Lena Carter walked into the academy hall with her head held high, but inside her stomach churned. This was the day she was assigned to her class, the day her future would be decided. The hall was enormous, filled with rows of glowing panels and walls lined with names of past graduates. Students moved around her, some chatting, some staring at their assignments with pride. She had trained for years to reach this moment, yet her name was called last as if it were a joke. "Lena Carter," the instructor said, his voice echoing in the hall. "Hunter Class Delta." A murmur ran through the room. Hunter Class Delta, the failed class. The name alone made other students laugh. Delta had a reputation: weapons that jammed, ships that broke down, monsters that could not be controlled. No one had ever finished a mission in that class. No one. Lena swallowed hard. She knew she had talent, but she also knew she was alone here. Other students glanced at her with a mix of pity and amusement. "Good luck," one whispered, and she caught a faint smirk. The instructor handed her a small, metallic badge and waved toward a side door. "Your dorm and lab are this way. You start your training immediately. Do not expect special treatment. This class is for those who cannot perform. Prove us wrong if you can." Lena nodded. She did not speak. She only followed. The dorms were small, utilitarian rooms. A single bed, a desk, a locker, and a view of the training yard. She unpacked quickly, putting her essentials in the locker. As she did, she noticed the other students' rooms. They were neat, but a few had cracked equipment, broken weapons, and manuals marked with frustration. The stories were true. Delta was not just a class for beginners, it was for failures. The first day of training began with monsters. Huge, bioengineered creatures designed for combat exercises. They were fast, strong, and dangerous. Instructors often warned students not to approach them without a trainer. The monsters were part of the academy's test. They measured a student's ability to survive, to control, and to lead. Most of the Delta students ran, screamed, or failed entirely. Many never even reached the second day. Lena stepped onto the training field. A massive creature, 4 times her height, with glowing eyes and scales like polished metal, paced inside a containment dome. Other students flinched as it roared. The instructors gave a signal, and the students had to approach and take control using neural commands transmitted through their suits. When it was Lena's turn, she walked forward. Her heart pounded, but she did not panic. The beast looked at her and she froze. Then something strange happened. Instead of attacking, it stopped, cocked its head, and watched her. The other students whispered, "What is she doing? And why isn't it moving?" Lena reached out a hand, almost instinctively. The beast took a cautious step closer. She felt a strange connection, like a thread pulling them together. Her suit sensors flickered, showing neural activity, but the readings were unusual. The instructors frowned. "That's not possible," one muttered. "It should have attacked immediately." She spent the next hour in the field. Every time she focused, the monster mirrored her intent. It crouched when she crouched, it circled slowly when she stepped back. She did not speak, did not make any gestures. She only thought, and the creature responded. When the hour ended, the instructors exchanged worried glances. Delta students who had tried before were in tears or bruised, but Lena walked away without a scratch. In the dorm that evening, she recorded her observations. Her hands trembled slightly, but her mind was sharp. She did not understand why the monsters responded to her, but she knew it was different from anything the Academy had ever seen. Ethan Ross, a tech officer assigned to monitor Delta class experiments, came by her room. He was young, quiet, and curious. "You handled the creature differently," he said, staring at her notes. "Everyone else failed in minutes. How did you do it?" Lena shrugged. "I just stayed calm. I didn't force it. I just thought about what it wanted to do." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Thought." "The neural links require signals through the suit. You can't just think. There's no record of anyone doing this before. It's impossible." Lena nodded slowly. "Maybe not for everyone." Ethan stayed silent a moment, studying her. Then he smiled faintly. "Well, if anyone can survive Delta class, it's probably you. Just be careful. The instructors don't like anomalies." The next morning brought new challenges. More creatures, some aggressive, some cunning. Delta students panicked and screamed. Some tried to use brute force or weapons, only to fail. But when Lena approached, the creatures paused. They watched, tested, and then followed her lead. By noon, 3 more monsters were responding exclusively to her commands. The instructors' frowns deepened, but they tried to mask their concern. In the cafeteria, other students whispered. "Did you see her in the yard?" one said. "The monster followed her without any command." Another shook his head. "I bet she's cheating somehow." Lena ignored them. She ate quietly, her mind replaying every movement, every neural signal. She realized that she did not need to give verbal orders or gestures. The monsters seemed to sense her thoughts, her intent. It was as if they understood her without speaking. Later, during strategy training, instructors tried to test her with multiple creatures at once. They released 6 beasts, all aggressive, all unpredictable. The expectation was failure. The other students watched, some openly rooting for her to fail. Lena stepped onto the field. She did not panic. She focused on calmness, on clarity. The creatures moved around her, uncertain at first. Then slowly they began to respond. One paused, waiting for her movement. Another shifted its stance to mirror her focus. Within minutes, all 6 were following her silently, not attacking, not resisting, simply waiting for her direction. The instructors were stunned. They exchanged hurried whispers. Delta class had never succeeded in such a test. Their logs recorded anomalies, but they could not explain them. Students stared, mouths open. Some were jealous, others frightened. Delta class had a new reality, Lena Carter. That evening, Lena walked in the empty corridors of the academy. The lights reflected in her eyes, and she thought about what had happened. She felt a strange mix of fear and wonder. She had not controlled the monsters. They had chosen her. She did not know why, and she knew she would have to understand fast. The academy was unforgiving, and any mistake could be fatal. Ethan came by again. He carried a small device, a neural scanner. "I want to record what's happening with the beasts," he said. "If this is real, it could change everything." Lena nodded. "I'm willing. But we have to be careful. If the wrong people see this," she trailed off. Ethan understood. Delta class was already watched closely. If the academy found out that one student could command monsters in ways no one had predicted, it could lead to experiments, dangers, or worse. He placed the scanner near the suit, and Lena focused again. The monsters' responses were recorded in fine detail. Patterns appeared. They followed her intent, adjusted to threats, reacted to moods. It was astonishing. Days passed, and Delta class continued its trials. Each exercise proved the same. Monsters responded to her alone. Instructors tried to intervene, tried to issue override commands, but the creatures ignored them. The other students grew more uneasy, some avoiding her, some openly mocking, but none could compete. By the end of the week, every monster in Delta class moved at her command. Not because she forced them, not because of equipment, but because they had chosen her. The instructors' reports were cautious, almost fearful. Delta class, the failed class, had suddenly become a force unlike anything the academy had seen. Lena walked alone on the training field at sunset. The creatures followed at a distance, calm, silent, protective. She did not give commands. She simply walked, and they mirrored her steps. She felt a connection, deep and unexplainable. The academy had sent her to a failed class, expecting her to break. Instead, she had uncovered something new, something powerful. Unknown to her, the galaxy outside was watching. Scouts from other empires monitored the academy, and whispers of a human who could command monsters had begun to spread. Some saw a threat, some saw a weapon, but no one understood the truth. Lena did not want power. She wanted to survive, to learn, and to understand the strange bond that had chosen her. As night fell, the stars above shimmered. Lena stood in the quiet field, surrounded by creatures no one else could control. A thought came to her, soft and clear. They are not my enemies. They are not my tools. They are my allies. And for the first time in her life, Delta class no longer felt like failure. It felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. The morning sun rose over the academy, casting long shadows across the training yards. Lena Carter stepped outside, her mind alert. Delta class waited for her as always, but today's exercise was different. The instructors had prepared a live simulation. Multiple hostile species had been released into a controlled zone, and the students were supposed to capture, contain, or defeat them. It was the most dangerous trial yet, and Delta class had never survived it. Lena walked toward the yard, her creatures following quietly. Others watched her with a mixture of fear and envy. Some whispered that she had cheated, that the monsters had no choice but to obey. But she knew the truth. They followed her because they wanted to. She did not give orders. She only thought clearly and stayed calm. That was enough. The simulation began. The dome doors opened and Delta class students entered the field. The other students flinched as small, spiky creatures leapt from the shadows, some scuttling along the ground, others flying overhead. The field was chaotic. Screams and shouted orders filled the air. Weapons fired, but the creatures were fast. Many students ran, panicked, or fell. Instructors yelled warnings and tried to intervene, but the situation escalated too quickly. Lena did not move hastily. She paused, letting her mind adjust. The creatures she commanded appeared beside her, calm and alert. She did not need to speak. They moved as if reading her thoughts. One of the flying monsters hovered near her, scanning the area. A ground creature crouched low, ready to spring. All around her, chaos raged, but she remained focused. Ethan Ross, monitoring from a control tower, was amazed. "This isn't just control," he muttered. "She's forming a bond. They are listening because they choose to, not because of the neural link." Delta students nearby were struggling. One student, Carl, tried to fire at a scuttling predator. It dodged instantly, then leapt and knocked him down. He screamed and scrambled backward. Another student, Mia, tried to rally her assigned monsters, but they ignored her. Panic spread quickly. Instructors shook their heads. Delta class, the supposed failure class, was in real danger. Lena took a slow step forward. The monsters around her shifted immediately, forming a loose circle that protected her. She focused on the closest predator, the one with spiky armor and glowing eyes. It paused, sniffing the air, then backed off. She extended her mind toward it, calm and steady. The creature crouched, then turned and fled from her team, leaving them free to move. The other students stared. "How?" one whispered. "She's not fighting, she's just thinking." More dangers appeared. A pack of medium-sized creatures with razor claws charged from the far end of the field. Most Delta students froze, terrified. Their weapons barely made a scratch. Lena stepped into the open. She did not run. She focused her thoughts on the pack. The creatures closest to her slowed. They circled her, scanning her calmly. The pack stopped, unsure. Then, one by one, they fell in line behind her creatures, forming a moving barrier. The instructor's radios crackled. "Report, why are the predators forming a perimeter?" one demanded. Another shook his head. "This isn't protocol, they shouldn't obey." Ethan watched the monitors and recorded every movement. "It's unprecedented," he whispered. "They are treating her as a leader, not a threat. Delta class has never done anything like this." Time passed slowly, but Lena did not falter. Each challenge the instructors created, she handled. Traps, ambushes, false signals, all were neutralized by her calm presence and the creature's obedience. Delta students nearby tried to follow her example but failed repeatedly. The monsters ignored them entirely. They did not even glance at their suits or controls. Only Lena mattered. After hours, the simulation began to wind down. Instructors expected some injuries, maybe a few failures. Delta class had never completed this exercise intact. But when the final bell rang, every creature in the zone was accounted for. None had been harmed unnecessarily. Every Delta student was alive. The Academy's control room fell silent. Reports were generated, but no one could explain what had just happened. Lena returned to her dorm, exhausted but steady. Her mind raced with questions. Why did the creatures respond to her thoughts? Why did they follow her when others failed? She did not understand, but she knew one thing: she had to learn fast. The Academy could not ignore her abilities for long, and she had no idea who would try to exploit them. Ethan arrived at her room carrying another device. "I have more data," he said, setting it on the desk. "The creatures are linking to your brain in ways we've never seen. Your neural signals are unique. Delta class has never had anyone like you." Lena leaned forward. "So it's real, it's not just luck." Ethan shook his head. "No luck, you're different. Whatever you're doing, it's natural for you. It's rare, extremely rare. If anyone else had your gift, they'd be in the top elite immediately. But here, in Delta, no one expected it." They spent the evening reviewing data. Each movement, each reaction, each subtle choice was recorded. The creatures' response times, the patterns, the subtle adjustments, they all pointed to one conclusion. Lena was a new type of leader, not mechanical, not programmed, but instinctive. The next day brought new challenges. The instructors were cautious. They released even more dangerous creatures, some bred for war, some designed to be unpredictable. Delta students panicked again. Screams echoed in the field, but Lena's creatures remained calm. They formed protective barriers, scouted ahead, and even intercepted hostile attacks before they reached the humans. Word of her success began to spread through the academy. Whispers reached other classes, other instructors. Some students avoided her out of fear. Some tried to confront her, asking for secrets, offering alliances. She ignored them all. She did not seek attention. She only focused on survival and understanding. Ethan became her closest ally. He continued to analyze her bond with the creatures, trying to find patterns, trying to predict what could happen next. He worried about the Academy's reaction if her abilities were revealed too widely. "They might want to use you," he warned. "Or worse, they might try to replace you." Lena nodded. She had thought of that. She had to be careful. The creature's loyalty was strong, but if she made a mistake, it could put them all in danger. She spent hours in the training yards, walking, thinking, meditating with the monsters. Each exercise strengthened the bond. The creatures learned her intentions more quickly. They responded faster. They seemed almost to anticipate her thoughts. By midweek, the instructors were forced to adjust their expectations. Delta-class students who had mocked her were now watching nervously. The Academy sent a small recording team to observe. They wanted evidence that something extraordinary was happening, but they could not explain it scientifically. Logs showed creatures responding to her commands alone, with precision, without hesitation. No other human had ever achieved this. Lena felt the weight of responsibility. She was not trying to lead monsters to war. She did not want power. She wanted to survive, to understand, to be herself. But others were already noticing. The Academy, the instructors, even the monitoring empire outside the Academy, they all sensed a potential threat or weapon. She could feel it in the quiet glances of the officers, in the whispered speculation of students. Late one evening, after another successful exercise, Lena stood at the edge of the training yard. The creatures waited patiently around her, calm, silent, loyal. Ethan approached quietly. "You did well today," he said. "They listened to you like nothing else. You're amazing." Lena looked at him. "I didn't make them do anything. They followed me because they wanted to. I think they trust me more than anyone else could." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then we have to be careful. Trust is powerful, but it can also attract danger. If the wrong people learn about this," Lena turned to the creatures. Their glowing eyes reflected the moonlight. She felt a strange pride, but also a quiet fear. The Academy had sent her to a class no one expected her to survive. Now she was proving that failure was impossible for her. But the galaxy outside was watching, and she had no idea who would try to use her gift next. As she walked back to her dorm, creatures moving silently beside her, she realized something important. She was not alone. She had allies, even if they were creatures others called monsters. And she had a choice. She could let the Academy dictate her future, or she could start learning how to lead in her own way. Delta class was no longer just a failed group of students. It was becoming a new kind of force, one built on trust, instinct, and loyalty. And Lena Carter, the girl no one expected, was at the center. The week ended with reports filled with anomalies, instructors confused and uneasy, and Delta class students looking at her with a mixture of fear and respect. No one understood how she had done it. She herself only understood a part of it. The rest would come with time, patience, and practice. For Lena, the real journey had only just begun. The Academy was buzzing with rumors. Whispers about Lena Carter had reached every corner. Instructors argued over her abilities, students stared with awe and fear, and scouts from outside the Academy sent reports that hinted at something unusual. Some called it a miracle, others called it a threat. Delta class, once ignored, was now the center of attention. Lena entered the training yard that morning, calm but aware. Her creatures followed her as always, silent, obedient, yet independent. Delta students avoided her path, some out of fear, some out of jealousy. She ignored them. She only focused on the creatures and the exercises that awaited her. The instructors had prepared a special test. It was designed to simulate an ambush by enemy forces. Robotic drones, armed with energy weapons, and aggressive bio-creatures were released into the field. The goal was to test coordination under extreme pressure. No human had ever succeeded. Delta class had a 0% survival record. The drones and bio-creatures advanced. Most students froze. Weapons fired wildly, but the creatures were too fast and too clever. Screams and alarms filled the air. Instructors barked orders, trying to control the chaos. Delta students were trapped, frightened, and alone. Lena stepped forward. She did not panic. She did not raise her weapon. She focused, letting her mind reach out to the creatures around her. The monsters responded instantly. They moved in formation, creating shields for the students, blocking attacks, and countering the drones' movements with precision. One of the robotic drones fired at a student named Eric. The shot was aimed to disable him, but a creature lunged in front, absorbing the hit. Another monster grabbed the drone and slammed it into the ground. Bio-creatures that had charged at Delta students suddenly stopped, turning to follow Lena's lead. Chaos became order. Ethan Ross monitored the exercise from the control tower. His hands shook as he typed notes. "This isn't training," he muttered. "She's controlling their instincts, not just their movements. She's commanding them without words, without signals. They are listening to her mind." Outside the academy, intelligence reports had reached the Galactic Council. Other empires were concerned. A single human commanding monsters in ways that no one had seen before could shift the balance of power. Some argued for negotiation. Others argued for capture. Military vessels began moving closer to the academy's sector. Back in the yard, the ambush intensified. Waves of bio-creatures advanced from multiple directions. Delta students panicked. Instructors tried to issue override commands, but the monsters ignored them. Only Lena mattered. With calm focus, she shifted her thoughts. The creatures blocked the incoming threats, flanked attackers, and protected her team. A massive creature, larger than any previously seen, charged at the center of the field. Its claws were huge, its teeth sharp. Delta students froze. Instructors shouted warnings. But the monster stopped abruptly. It tilted its head, looking at Lena. She did not speak, she did not gesture. She only focused. The creature lowered its stance and followed her guidance. It moved slowly, carefully, until it positioned itself to protect the students. The exercise ended with no casualties. Every student survived. The creatures had not harmed each other unnecessarily. The instructors were silent, their faces pale. The logs recorded data they could not explain. Delta class, the failed class, had just survived the most impossible trial in Academy history. After the exercise, the Academy called an emergency meeting. Commanders, instructors, and analysts gathered. Charts, reports, and recordings filled the room. Everyone tried to understand what had happened. Some suggested the neural links were malfunctioning. Others suggested tampering. A few whispered about human evolution, rare traits that allowed exceptional abilities. Lena walked into the meeting quietly. She had been summoned to explain herself. She did not know what to say. She had not used tricks or technology. She had only focused, stayed calm, and let the creatures respond to her intentions. She had done what she had always done, yet now everyone was watching. One of the senior instructors spoke sharply. "Lena Carter, this is unprecedented. We need answers. How are you controlling these creatures? This is not within Academy protocols. It is impossible." Lena's voice was calm. "I'm not controlling them. They follow me because they want to. I don't give orders. I only think clearly and they respond." Murmurs filled the room. Some were skeptical, others confused. Ethan spoke quietly, supporting her. "I've monitored every exercise. The creatures respond to her mind, not her suit. It's a natural bond, something new. We can't explain it fully, but it's real." The council considered their options. Some feared Lena could be used as a weapon. Others feared losing her to outside forces. They debated whether to train her, protect her, or isolate her. Eventually, they decided on a compromise. Lena would continue training under supervision, but Delta class would no longer be dismissed as a failure. She was now the Academy's special operative, a living command node for the creatures. Days later, the Academy received a direct challenge. An external fleet, claiming to represent a rival empire, demanded that Lena be handed over for study. They warned that if she were not surrendered, they would attack the Academy. Commanders were alarmed. The request was clear. They wanted her, and they wanted her alive. The Academy prepared for the possibility of conflict. Delta class, under Lena's guidance, was moved to a secure area. The creatures followed without hesitation. Delta students, previously scared and unsure, now trusted her instinctively. They saw the creature's loyalty and began to understand the power of her calm focus. Lena realized the situation was no longer a training exercise. This was real. The fleet outside was strong, armed, and dangerous. They expected chaos and vulnerability. They did not expect strategy, coordination, or loyalty, and the monsters were no longer just animals. They were allies ready to defend her and her team. Ethan helped her prepare. "We need to move carefully," he said. "They will attack if they see weakness, but with the creatures we can manage the threat. Your bond gives us an advantage no one else has." Lena nodded. She understood. She had to be precise, calm, and focused. The creatures responded to her intentions like extensions of her mind. She did not need to shout commands or point weapons. She only had to think, and they acted. The first attack came at dawn. Small ships approached, dropping aggressive drones and bio-creatures onto the Academy's training field. Delta students panicked, but Lena remained steady. She focused. Her creatures moved immediately, intercepting threats, shielding humans, and neutralizing attackers with precision. Ethan observed from the tower, astonished. "It's incredible," he whispered. "She's not just defending herself, she's organizing, leading, predicting." They follow her instinctively. Waves of attackers continued. Delta students began to understand their roles. They did not give orders, they observed and followed Lena. The creatures moved as a single unit, blocking, attacking, and countering in a coordinated manner. The outside forces were stunned. They expected a chaotic fight. Instead, they faced an organized, precise defense guided by a single human presence. The largest enemy creature, a towering bio-beast, charged at Delta class. It was designed to crush all defenses. Instructors shouted warnings. Delta students froze, but Lena stepped forward calmly. She focused. Her creatures moved around the enemy, guiding its movements, avoiding harm and containing it. It struggled, then paused, confused by the coordinated effort. Finally, it yielded to her guidance, not through control, but through choice. After hours of fighting, the attackers retreated. Their ships returned to orbit, leaving the Academy untouched. Delta class had survived, unscathed, and had done so through the bond between Lena and her creatures. The Academy leaders were in shock. Reports called it a miracle, but they could not deny it. That evening, Lena walked among her creatures. They were calm, waiting for her instructions, but none were needed. She understood them more clearly now. She had not only survived a battle, she had proven that humans could inspire loyalty, strategy, and coordination in creatures once considered uncontrollable. Ethan approached quietly. "You've changed everything," he said. "They will want you now, not just the Academy, but the entire galaxy. Some will want to use you, others will want to destroy you." Lena looked at the creatures surrounding her. Their glowing eyes reflected the starlight. She felt pride, yes, but also a deep awareness of responsibility. She was not a weapon. She was a leader. She had the power to inspire loyalty, to protect life, and to show that humans could do more than dominate. They could earn trust. She realized for the first time that her path would not be easy. The galaxy had taken notice, and they would test her in ways the Academy never could. But she was ready. She had allies who had chosen her. She had instincts she did not yet fully understand. And she had a vision of what humans and creatures could achieve together. Delta class was no longer a failed group. It was a force guided by a single human. And Lena Carter, the girl no one expected to survive, had become a symbol of something extraordinary, proof that humans could inspire, lead, and achieve greatness in a universe that doubted them. The night ended with the stars shining over the Academy. The creatures slept in quiet circles around Lena. Delta students rested, trusting her instinctively. And somewhere beyond the Academy, fleets and empires began to take note of the human who could command monsters with nothing but thought and calm focus. The galaxy had changed, and Lena Carter was at its center. The galaxy had taken notice. Reports of a human commanding monsters with instinct and calm precision had reached every sector. Some feared her, some admired her, and some saw her as a tool to be captured or destroyed. The Academy prepared for the worst, but Lena Carter remained calm. She had survived every challenge so far. She trusted her creatures, and they trusted her. Together, they were unstoppable. The rival empire that had demanded her surrender before now advanced with a full fleet. Their ships bristled with weapons, ready to strike. They believed they could overwhelm the Academy and take Lena by force. They did not understand the bond she had formed with the creatures, or the intelligence and strategy that flowed through her mind. Delta class was ready. The creatures moved in formation around the Academy's perimeter, their presence both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Delta students, once fearful and clumsy, now worked together with calm confidence. They did not issue orders. They observed Lena and followed her example. Their trust in her was complete. Ethan Ross stood at the control tower beside Lena. "They're coming fast," he said. We have to be ready. The fleet expects chaos. They will not anticipate order. Lena nodded. She could feel the creatures around her. Their instincts were heightened, their attention focused. She could sense every movement in the field, every potential threat. She did not need to shout or gesture. She only needed to focus. The enemy ships arrived in orbit, dropping waves of bio-creatures and drones onto the Academy grounds. The creatures under Lena's guidance intercepted immediately. Flying monsters blocked aerial attacks, while ground creatures formed protective barriers around students and infrastructure. The attackers were fast, aggressive, and strong, but every move was countered with precision. Lena moved through the field, calm and deliberate. She thought and the creatures acted. They formed shields, flanked enemies, and captured attacking bio-creatures without killing unnecessarily. Delta students moved alongside them, safe under the protective formations. Chaos was present, but it was controlled chaos guided by her instincts and focus. Ethan watched from above, his eyes wide. "They're not just following," he whispered. "They're predicting. They anticipate every strike." This is more than strategy. It's instinct amplified through her mind. Waves of attackers continued, but each time Lena adjusted. She did not panic. She did not hesitate. Her creatures responded instantly, protecting the humans and neutralizing threats. The attackers were confused. They had expected fear and disorder. Instead, they faced coordination, intelligence, and loyalty unlike anything they had ever seen. At one point, a massive enemy biobeast charged at the central command tower. Delta students panicked, weapons firing wildly. The creature broke through initial defenses, and for a moment it seemed unstoppable. But Lena stepped forward calmly. She focused her mind on the creature's instincts. It paused, it looked at her, it tilted its head. Then, almost impossibly, it turned, following her guidance instead of attacking. The enemy fleet realized too late that they were outmatched. Their drones and creatures could not coordinate against the creatures loyal to Lena. Each wave was intercepted, redirected, or neutralized. The attackers' numbers were large, but discipline, instinct, and trust proved stronger than raw force. After hours of battle, the enemy ships retreated. Their waves of attacks ceased. The Academy and Delta class were intact. Not a single human was seriously injured. The creatures returned to calm positions, surrounding Lena silently, protective and loyal. She had won without violence beyond what was necessary, proving that trust and intelligence could defeat brute force. The Academy leaders were stunned. Reports were filed. The Galactic Council was informed. Delta class had achieved the impossible. They had survived, defended the Academy, and defeated a full enemy assault, all under the guidance of a single human. Lena Carter had changed the perception of what humans could do. They could inspire loyalty, coordinate forces instinctively, and lead creatures others called monsters with intelligence and strategy. Lena walked through the training yard as the sun set, the creatures moving around her calmly. Delta students followed quietly, observing and learning. They no longer feared the unknown. They had seen that humans could earn trust, guide instincts, and succeed even in impossible circumstances. Ethan approached, holding a small data pad. "They're calling it a miracle," he said. "The fleet is backing off. The galaxy is watching." "You've proven humans can lead where others fail." Lena shook her head slightly. "It's not a miracle," she said softly. "It's trust. They chose to follow me. I didn't make them obey. I only gave them reason to believe in me." Her creatures responded, gathering close. Some rested their heads near her feet. Their glowing eyes reflected the light of the setting sun. She understood them better than ever. She knew their moods, their instincts, their reactions. They were more than tools. They were allies. They were partners. The galaxy beyond the Academy began to change. Empires reconsidered their views of humans. No longer were humans just another species competing for dominance. Now, they were a species capable of inspiring loyalty and leading with strategy, intelligence, and empathy. Stories of Lena Carter and Delta class spread throughout sectors, inspiring hope, fear, and respect in equal measure. Lena realized the responsibility she carried. She was not a weapon. She was a symbol. A proof that humans could achieve extraordinary things, not through domination, but through understanding, patience, and trust. Her choices would influence not only the Academy, but the galaxy itself. Weeks passed, and Delta class became the model for a new type of training. Humans were taught not only to fight, but to understand, to bond, and to lead instinctively. Creatures once considered uncontrollable were now allies in simulations, exercises, and defensive operations. The lessons learned through Lena's example reshaped the academy and its approach to combat and leadership. Lena herself continued to train. She did not seek fame or recognition. She wanted to understand her abilities, strengthen her bond with the creatures, and prepare for whatever challenges the galaxy might present. She spent long hours in the training yards, walking, meditating, and observing the creatures' responses. She learned to anticipate, guide, and communicate silently, building a connection that no one else could replicate. Ethan stayed by her side, recording data, monitoring exercises, and advising her. He understood her unique abilities and respected her autonomy. Together, they explored new techniques, combining instinct with strategy, intuition with precision. They discovered that humans could lead creatures in ways the galaxy had never imagined, and that trust could surpass technology in importance. The creatures themselves seemed to sense the change. They no longer acted merely on instinct or training. They made decisions, responded to threats, and protected humans not because of commands, but because of loyalty. They had chosen Lena, and through her they had chosen to trust humanity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lena stood in the center of the academy field. The creatures formed a protective circle around her, calm, alert, and ready. Delta students observed silently. The academy had changed. The galaxy had seen a glimpse of human potential that had never been imagined. Lena looked at the sky. She knew this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, enemies would test them, and choices would need to be made. But she also knew one thing. Humans could inspire, humans could lead, and humans could achieve greatness not through fear, but through trust and loyalty. And so Delta Class, once the failed group, became a legend. The galaxy learned a new truth. Humans could lay down rules not with force alone, but with intelligence, understanding, and a bond that no technology could break. Lena Carter walked among her creatures, the night stars shining above. She was calm, focused, and ready. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of a human who could guide monsters with nothing but mind and trust. And from that day forward, no one would underestimate humanity again. Delta Class had survived. Humanity had proven itself. And Lena Carter had shown that even the smallest, most overlooked forces could become extraordinary when given respect, trust, and guidance. The creatures rested at her feet. Delta students followed quietly. The Academy watched in awe, and the galaxy waited, knowing that humans had set new rules, rules based on loyalty, intelligence, and the courage to inspire. The story ended not with a war, not with domination, but with understanding. And in that understanding, humanity had truly earned its place among the stars.